Hello, my name is Pamela Clark, and I am presenting my interpersonal communication project for HSER 508 under the tutelage of Dr. Davis. Next slide. Many problems and derogatory situations happen in society and in our daily lives because of a failure or a lack of good communication. Next slide. What is communication? Communication is a continuous, complex collaboration process of verbal and nonverbal meaning making. Interpersonal communication is a type of communication that happens when people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize their presence. Next slide. There are 3 levels of listening. Level 1, empathetic listening. Level 2, hearing words but not really listening. And level 3, listening in spurts. Next slide. Enlarging conversation is a key component in the communication process. It's extremely important in conversation. It requires actively listening and appropriately responding to maximize the conversation potential. In my opinion, enlarging conversation also requires maturity in conversation and emotional intelligence. Next slide. My overarching goal is to maximize my listening capabilities by applying all of the relevant components involved in interpersonal communication effectiveness. Next slide. The DISC model of behavior is a personality assessment that reflects 4 types and categories of personalities: the D, I, C, and S. They're all either active or passive, and they reveal these characteristics listed. And this can be found at the uniquelyu.com website. Next slide. What is behavioral blend? The behavioral blend is a combination of various personality types. My behavioral blend is the IC blend, which means I am inspiring and competent, enjoys public speaking, excel in writing and formulating thoughts, influence and impress in conversation, have excellent verbal communication skills, and research and investigation prowess. Next slide. The negative characteristics of personality indicator of my profile: intolerable of others' shortcomings, can be stubborn in presenting side, a know-it-all attitude, overused charisma to manipulate people, extremely fault-finding of others, make hurtful comments on a whim, need to be more sensitive of others, and don't interact well with emotionally weak. Next slide. My personal intimate behavioral blend does fall well within the category listed on the previous slides. I do love to write. I love words and speech. Words normally flow very easily for me. I love to write poetry. I enjoy writing papers. I love putting together programs and bulletins and flyers for weddings or family reunions or special occasions. I really enjoy performing those functions. I'm currently writing a book entitled Give It All You Got, an inspirational religious book about a single mom struggling to raise 2 kids and how Christ carries her through all of her suffering and pain to triumph in the end, trusting and believing on the Word of God. I hope that that will be published within the next couple of years. Next slide. Some barriers in my communication. One major barrier I would have to say is not previously recognizing the importance of good communication. Before this class, I did not give it any prior thought, actually, I'm ashamed to say. But now, being aware of how important communication is in our daily function and activities, going forward, I will utilize interpersonal communication skills in my daily life. I also need to work on confidence when I'm speaking in groups. I do need to learn to read nonverbal signs a little bit better. And I do also need to have a little more empathy in listening. To overcome these barriers, I will use the personal growth that I've learned thus far in interpersonal communication, understanding how irrelevant and important it is, applying these skills and utilizing that knowledge to my daily life to maximize my communication effectiveness. Next slide. My plan of action is to maximize communication skills, utilizing superior and verbal nonverbal communication skills, maximizing the inhaling and exhaling principle to my life, establishing better communication with my family, friends, and associates, and recognizing communication barriers and conflicts immediately to overcome them quickly. Next slide. Some distractions in listening, external and internal. Talker not loud enough, whispering or loud noises distracting us, outside scenery or outside activities going on around distracting us, interruptions from phone calls or other types of interruptions. Time pressures and deadlines can also be a distraction in listening. Fidgeting, someone fidgeting, or just stormy weather itself can be a distraction. Or being in an unacquainted crowd around people that you don't know that makes you uncomfortable, that can be a distraction in listening. Someone chewing gum, and that has happened to me, someone being very annoying chewing gum, distracting us from listening, and distracting colors or movements that we see in the background that can take our focus off of the communication. Next slide. Overcoming internal and external noise pollution in interpersonal communication. This is my own evaluation. I believe that you must eliminate or reduce outside noise, speak clearly, raise the speech volume, and listen attentively are some ways to overcome the noise pollution in interpersonal communication. Next slide. Good communication is just as important whether it's in business, family, or the social setting. Next slide. Speech is a joint game between the talker and the listener against the forces of confusion. Unless both make the effort, interpersonal communication is quite hopeless. By Norbert Weiner, The Human Use of Human Beings. Next slide. My bibliography, references used in this presentation: Burley Allen, Carbonell, Peterson, and Stewart. Next slide. I want to say thank you, Ms. Davis. I have really enjoyed this class. I've learned a lot of interpersonal communication, and I really look forward to applying this to my daily life. Thank you. The end of presentation.